Welcome back. As clashes between China and the U.S. continue to erupt over a number of issues, including Hong Kong, Huawei, and the South China Sea, some have said the relationship has hit its worst point since diplomatic ties were re-established in 1979. Now, China's foreign ministry on Thursday published what it calls a reality check of U.S. unilateral demand for China to close Consulate General in Houston, in which it debunks 10 claims the U.S. has made. Now, according to the statement, the U.S. has been, quote, fabricating pretexts and spreading lies about the reason it closed the consulate. Lies will always be lies, even if they are repeated 1,000 times, it says. So what should both sides brace for in the days to come? And are new global alliances forming as tensions heat up? Joining me from Shanghai is Professor DINGLI at the Institute of International Studies at Fudan University, and from Memphis, Tennessee, Professor Joseph MAHONEY at East China Normal University, and Mr. RONG once again, Vice President of the China Institute of International Studies. Welcome to you all. So first, let's take a look at some of the recent remarks from both sides. I want to read both statements to our viewers and then get your reactions to it. First of all, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, he seems to be jumping at every opportunity he gets to hype up a so-called China threat. On Wednesday, he took another swipe when, in a podcast interview with a conservative American host, he said, quote, from America's national security perspective, the threat the president, meaning Donald Trump, identified when he campaigned back in 2015 from the Chinese Communist Party is very real. And so we've begun to take all the right actions to rebalance this relationship in a way that protects and secures freedoms for American people. And now, let's take a look at the other side, the Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi's remarks. On Tuesday, he denounced the U.S. move, saying, quote, they have forsaken the most basic sense of propriety in interactions between countries and breached the very bottom line of international norms. Such behavior is stark power politics that can be captured by one word, hegemony. Now, in his remarks, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is trying to instigate renewed ideological confrontation and lead the world to a new Cold War. With the U.S. being so blatant and unreasonable, China will make firm and rational responses. So let's talk about this. Professor MAHONEY, let me begin with you. Mike Pompeo is talking about the threat of the Communist Party once again and vows to take all the right action to rebalance this relationship. I'm quoting his words. And the Chinese side condemns these remarks. So now we have this reality check released by China's foreign ministry that accuses the U.S. of spreading lies. So it seems that every day the China-U.S. relationship further sours. I mean, what's going on there?
Well, let me just throw a couple of points out really quickly. The breaking news in the United States this morning, and you know, I'm 12, 13 hours behind Beijing right now, is that the American economy in this quarter shrank 32.9%, the worst performance since World War II. And the other major breaking news is that Trump is calling for a delay in the presidential election. These are massive breaking news stories that are going to, I think, have tremendous implications on U.S.-China relations, because ultimately Trump will try to blame these two problems on China in increasing ways. Now, with respect to your direct question, we have to say that the U.S. In this immediate moment, through the lens of the Trump administration, first goal is to win election, second is to blame and contain China, and third is to reassert American hegemony. And I think if you look at Pompeo, the president, the vice president, the attorney general, the head of the FBI, you look at what they're doing in terms of prosecutions, closing the Houston consulate, even shutting simple things down like the Fulbright fellowship. I wrote a recommendation for a colleague a couple of days ago for this fellowship program that's been going on for years in the social sciences and humanities, and it's been shut down. You know, the Trump's former advisor, who has some ambiguous role with Trump now, Bannon, has said that the objective is to see Xi Jinping replaced or the CPC brought down. And it's clear that the overall effort here is to undermine China's leadership at home and abroad. And to this end, there's increasingly talk of a total war strategy unfolding in Washington.
So we often hear the Trump administration is using China to gear up for the election in November, and that now, as Mr. Mahoney just mentioned, Trump is calling a delay for presidential election in November. I mean, what should we expect next from the Trump administration? Professor Shen, let me bring you into this. What is the U.S. aiming for now in the next stage? What can we expect in particular?
Well, President Trump would do its utmost to get his chance to be re-elected higher. For this, he may imagine all creative means, finding more excuse against China on the so-called covering up of the China-related evidence of generating the COVID. Or pressurizing more Chinese students studying in the U.S. on the visa issue, and also blaming China on various issues on Hong Kong, and pressurizing the Hong Kong dollar, and possibly do more harm. So as long as he would be as crazy as thinking about delaying the U.S. presidential election, you can imagine he could invent all inconceivable means to lift his chance and to beat China.
Mr. Rong, your thoughts on this? This tension between the two superpowers, two world powers, technology, trade at sea and space. I mean, is there any battleground untouched?
Indeed, I think it has been such an unprecedented sort of development, in a sense, and of course concern, the grave concern about not only about the relationship, but about the future of this world, which is now full of problems. Certainly, I think it seems that over the past years, past decades, whenever we have U.S. general elections, I think the world has more or less sort of forced or compelled to develop a kind of habit to live with, I mean, certain sort of crazy or develop in a way that let's hope that that's crazy time, this election years, and that'll be over. But that was the story in the past, not now. What we are having now is that the politicians, the Trump administration, like the Secretary Pompeo and others, for the sake of their personal political interest, they are playing up the fire of a really important relationship between China and the United States, to the extent that it will cause maybe a major power conflict or problems. This is something I think irresponsible, and this is something I think not only the United States, the voters in the United States, but also the country people around the world should not stand still. That's why after speeches by Secretary Pompeo, even U.S. academics like Dr. Richard Haas and others, they came out to criticize. This is wrong, and this is wrong in the sense that not only does not serve the interest of the United States, but also certainly I think would have a very consequential, grave consequences for the relationship and for the world.
So we've come to this stage, and Mr. Wang Yi, the foreign minister, said China will make firm and rational responses. Professor Shen, how exactly, what is the message here? Do you think China will react stronger or more assertively in its attitude in the days to come?
Well, it's not a matter to be strong or not. It's a matter of principle. So China would respond in principle if its legitimate interest is harmed. But meantime, China wants to continue to partner with the U.S. to build the bridge of peace and cooperation. If the U.S. would destroy a bridge, China would be rational not to follow the U.S. to damage another bridge. So China would balance between principle and maintaining the mutual relationship, not for the growth of America, but for the growth of the linking and communication exchange between China and the U.S. This is something probably some elements in the U.S. want to damage. and China would not respond to U.S. to create a double damage. So this is how I take away from Foreign Minister Wang Yi's remarks.
And now, despite his fierce attacks on China, Mike Pompeo also said in Wednesday's interview that we hope there are places that we can work with China. And Wang Yi, in his statement, talks about China and the U.S. should engage in rational communication as well. Professor Mahoney, does that mean the sides still have a bottom line in spite of their recent tensions? Is there still room for cooperation under the Trump administration now?
I think there are 3 points here. The first is, you know, to go follow on your previous question. The argument coming out of the United States is really an emotional argument, and it's hard. Anyone who's ever been in a personal relationship, it's hard to counter an emotional argument with a rational one. That said, as you noted, there have been these appeals to reason on both sides, but I'm not sure that this is really communicating at each other, but more communicating to their own people. Look, we're trying to be reasonable, as well as possible alliances with Europe. But that said, you know, I think that both of these sides, their bottom lines are starting to diverge, and the door is closing for this generation or these two leaders, especially, to make any real headway or progress. I don't know how they walk back many of the things that have happened at this point.
Now, Wang Yi also mentioned the U.S. is trying to lead the world into the new Cold War. Professor Rohn, I want to get your take on this remark. I mean, many Chinese and American observers, even in the White House, are also speaking of this so-called new Cold War between the two countries. What are your thoughts on this?
I think China has made it very clear we're not going to engage in such any kind of war, new or old. I mean, China has made it very clear, loud and clear again. It continues to committed to building a stable and constructive relationship with the United States. And as a matter of fact, I think a few days back, State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi in a speech.
I'm afraid I have to jump in here, Mr. Rohn. Sorry about that. We're running out of time. That's all the time we have, looks like, for this edition of The Point here. Very interesting discussion. We're going to have to go. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you same time tomorrow. Bye for now.